Well, I'm Mike Trucano. I work at the World Bank on EdTech issues, things happening at the intersection of technology and education. I've been doing this at the World Bank for almost 25 years and before it as well. And I'm a big fan and supporter, some cases collaborator with the Education Alliance for a long time. And I'm super happy to talk with you today.
Thanks, Mike. It's thrilling to have you join us for the interview today. And you mentioned 25 years. That's probably for as long as I've known you, Mike, if around then, for the work that we did together at the World Bank through the World Links for Development program. But the great occasion that we've had over many, many years to have a chance to work with each other and just to share ideas. So I appreciate your being able to join us for one of our interviews for Voices. Mike, as you've mentioned, you've had a long career related to EdTech. We'd just maybe like to hear from you a few of the career milestones, a little bit of your progression, how you ended up where you are at the World Bank, just to start off with before we ask some questions.
You mentioned the World Links program that we were both involved with in the late 90s. I mean, it was really, I started as the first webmaster, with that title at the World Bank, and they say in the Valley of the Blind, the one-eyed man or woman is king or queen. And, in the mid 90s, I made some money and supported myself in grad school by designing websites when these things were just getting started. And I was hired to be the first webmaster because I was maybe young, so I was cheap. I had public speaking experience because I'd been a teacher. I had this technology background as well, and I had studied and lived in different parts of the world. So I had maybe not a lot of qualifications, but just a little bit, enough of a little bit of things that they would take a flyer on me for this whole new thing called the internet inside a big institution. It was a great way to get to understand really what the World Bank International Development was all about, because I had to talk with everybody, because everyone was just getting online. And as part of that, I got to know these people with this crazy idea to connect schools to the internet in 1996, not schools in Palo Alto or either Cambridge, but initially in Kampala, Uganda. And out of that came this World Links program. And it was just a real privilege and pleasure to be involved in really working with people who are really pioneers in the use of educational technology in low and middle income countries around the world. And you're certainly one of them. And I think that's a lot of what I learned by doing and by making a lot of mistakes along with a whole bunch of other people to just try to see what worked and what didn't. And working in very challenging places where there are all sorts of constraints on what you can do in education, where results maybe have been poor, where teachers are way overwhelmed, you have lots of kids in the classroom, and this new thing called the internet came around, and computers have been around, of course, in some cases, in some of these countries for a while, but not really used in education that much. And say, what can we learn? How can we help make things better? And I think since then, I've been sort of on an exploration, an experiment in trying to figure out with lots of people smarter than me how to maybe do that. And so that the World Links program was a real highlight, and a lot of people around the world actually were involved in that program in various ways. 1996, 1998, there were a lot of these kind of things happening. In Mali, in Uganda, there were things that we were able to hook up with in South Africa and Chile. And I think a real highlight of my program that time with that program was starting the India and China programs, which just became massive very quickly. And it was my exposure to those countries where I think some of the most interesting things in technology and education have been happening over the last 2 decades.
So again, thoroughly enjoyed working with you on the World Links for Development program with that same spirit of pioneership as well. But I also appreciate, given how much experience Mike, how humble you are, just in terms of lessons learned and also mistakes that we've all made in the field as well, and how much more there is to learn as well. But your role, including with the blog that you've done for the World Bank, to basically share your experiences and those of others. Were there any particular blogs that were foremost or sort of step out as ones that you thought were pretty impactful?
Yeah, the big one of the early things I did was about just worst practices in education, and that thing was, read over 1 million times. I think I saw versions of it in a dozen languages. Just randomly, it struck a chord with people in a kind of a proto-listicle, if you will, on the internet of, and the number of times that I have been asked to still speak about that, even this month, and we're in the fourth day of December. It's unbelievable because unfortunately, a lot of these worst practices seem to be evergreen. Of late, and now we are in the middle of the COVID pandemic. I wrote a post back in 2009 about educational technology in the time of pandemics and what it might mean. And I was obviously talking about different things. I was talking about especially SARS back then, and I sort of updated it in 2014. But it's been remarkable to me the number of folks who've reached out to me still since then to sort of talk through scenarios and what technology might mean here in this time and what it might mean going forward.
Interesting, Mike. Again, what comes to mind is humility in this field in terms of how much we don't know, but also test and failure as a way that we could learn and hopefully accelerate and not reinvent as well. You were part of the Education Alliance from its inception over about 11 years ago, Mike. So really appreciated your being a representative from the World Bank along with representatives from a number of these other agencies. Curious, do you have any particular memories of the Education Alliance that you'd like to share, or even insights like what you've seen over the 10 years that you've been attending? Have you seen some sort of progression or other insights that you'd like to share vis-a-vis the Education Alliance?
Yeah, well, I don't know if you intended this as like a fantastic question to ask as a follow-up to the last one, because you said you talked about humility, and there's so much that we don't know, but we know a heck of a lot more than we used to. And we compare what the kinds of questions that were being asked at the first Education Alliance International Symposium, where we really brought together really lots of like the leading people and leading voices and leading actors in this area, over a decade ago, to just sort of share experience and talk shop. And those questions have gotten a lot better, and we started to have answers as well. And that is, at the start, what's the impact of technology in education? I mean, people don't ask, at least the people in the field don't ask that so much anymore, because it depends on what you're trying to do, with whom, under what circumstance, over what time frame, given what constraints, and then being able to have nuanced replies to that sort of general question. That's when I think the Education Alliance has been really good at just bringing people from all over the world together to share these experiences. And whether they are, academics, leaving the ivory tower and getting their fingers and hands dirty, talking directly with policymakers, talking with people who work in international aid agencies, talking with entrepreneurs, talking with students. The mix of folks and the dedication, but sort of the ability of the Education Alliance just to bring these folks together and give them a way to be connected, and that's catalyzed in so many cases. It was really just it was like a brilliant decision to make it happen when it did, because it was the right time. Because almost, you could say 10 years ago, it was an inflection point from, I used to recommend, there were 5 studies, like 5 rigorous studies I would recommend on one hand. Everybody, what do we know about this in medium and low income countries, quote unquote, developing countries? Same 5, and now we just have, of rigorous studies, we have tons and stuff that isn't as good, but still really useful. When we have thousands and thousands of things, we've gone from a real sort of information deficit to like everything in our lives, information overload. And the Education Alliance has been a great way to filter that through the publications and the surveys that you've published, and just bringing together all these pieces of information in a way that people can, say, and people who are in the know say, well, I had no idea about that. I had no idea about that group. I had no idea about that approach. And that's been to be involved and sort of to see that has been great.
Well, we really appreciate the opportunity to take advantage of your time to ask these questions and to be able to share this more widely through the Voices in the EdTech Connected platform. So again, just really appreciate being able to work alongside you for a couple of decades and be able to watch this space with somebody such as yourself that's such a guiding light. So really appreciate your joining us today.
Thanks for the kind words, Tony. Thanks for everything. It's awesome what you have built with a lot of people, but it's, with you at the center, with lots of people sort of orbiting around you. I'm happy to chat, and I look forward to the next 10 years.
Cool. Right back at you.